So in this video we are talking about the Ankh, about how it works and how it was used during Atlantean and Egyptian times and how they were related with the Sphinx actually. So hello everyone, my name is Valeria and in this channel we talk about spirituality and esoterics. So today we are talking about the Ankhs, and sometimes this is called the Egyptian cross, which I don't like because the Ankh means more like eternal life, and also the Ankh was super used, for example, in Atlantis, okay? And the Ankhs were used and charged through these things, and at the same time the Ankhs were also used in the Great Pyramid of Giza, okay, in order to serve as an interdimensional travel portal. So the Ankhs are deeply connected with both the Sphinx and the Giza, okay? So to understand how the Ankh works, it is important to remember about the Ark of the Covenant and the Sphere and also the blue flame, okay? So the blue flame is made of fifth dimensional frequencies which were part of the Earth when it was on the fifth dimension. And because blue is associated with the fifth dimension, each color is associated with a dimension actually. So then we also need to understand that there are three factors that make the Ankhs work, okay? So first is the shape of the Ankh, as the energy moves like in certain ways, okay? Then the material, because the material needs to be able to conduct super high frequencies, and at the same time we also need to have access to these sources of ultra high frequencies, and we haven't had this access like in the past years. The last time that we really had this access was in Egypt, in these Egyptian times, okay? And that was thanks to the access that we had to the blue flame, okay, through the Ark of the Covenant. And so this is important, that this is why it is so important for us now to recover our access to this blue flame and the blue sphere and the Ark of the Covenant, okay? And we are doing that now, especially on 2022, 2023, and so on, okay? So we are going to have more of these energies available probably in the years to come, okay? So when we talk about 75,000 years ago, there was this Lemurian civilization and also the Atlantean civilization, because in a specific moment in time they overlap, okay? So these civilizations on the earth were prospering, okay? So that is when we as Lemurians, as Atlanteans, we started to receive these gifts from Sirius, okay, from the Syrian Council. And we started to develop like super quickly regarding technologies, and these beings from Sirius B, they were well-meaning with this, but they brought to the earth the huge crystalline, power generators. And then these beings from Sirius, they taught beings that were on the earth, on Lemuria and Atlantis how to draw the energy directly from the center of the earth, okay? So that was on the second dimension, the energy on the center of the earth. And from there, how to really store that energy within the crystal generators, okay? And so the Elohim beings, for example, also allowed some people to draw these blue frequencies, the blue flame frequency of the fifth dimension through the Ark of the Covenant, okay? So then we as civilizations, we started to have access to deep multidimensional frequencies. And then everything on the earth, the morphogenetic field of the earth, were deeply affected, and for example, the objects were manifested and unmanifested, and we were able to move huge stones and to build things. For example, the Ankh allowed these ultra high frequencies to be moved in certain ways and following these natural laws. And they were used, for example, to create the sphinx and other structures, okay? They were used to build structures and temples for interdimensional transit and travel, okay, which is pretty cool, and also for healing and balance and to modulate the weather and so on. So now we are going to see this picture here that I tried to draw with my understanding of how this was working when it comes to these things, okay? So here you wanna pay attention to the picture. So the Ankhs were attracting and storing the energy. The energy that was available thanks to the Ark of the Covenant. And again, the Ark of the Covenant was a passage, okay? And then thanks to this, we were able to access the blue flame, okay? And again, the blue flame was in Andromeda. So the Ankhs were able to draw, to hold, and transmute the energy. So remember, the blue flame is mostly frequencies from the fifth dimension, but also the fourth and the sixth, okay? Is the second density. So this is a passage into the earth of fifth dimension, but also to Andromeda. Through this passage, different objects, including the Ankhs that were made from gold, mostly I prefer gold actually, the Ankhs were charged with these high frequencies, so imagine that the Sphinx was like on the main portal to the inner earth, and then through this inner earth, the Ark of the Covenant, the passage, could be accessed, okay? So the Sphinx was actually protecting the portal to the inner earth, and then was like this direct link to this passage that went to the Ark of the Covenant, okay? And then this Ark of the Covenant, the passage, was connected to Andromeda and the blue flame that was stored in Andromeda, okay? So you can maybe imagine that some people were into the Sphinx and were, in the catacombs of the Sphinx. And then in this space, you were able to charge the Ankh, okay? And not only the Ankh, but different objects, actually. And, so there were different machines that were like transmitting energy, and they were charged with these ultra high frequencies, okay? And so usually priests and priestesses were allowed to go into the catacombs of the Sphinx, and there you had access to the inner earth portal, okay? And there you were able to connect with the Ark of the Covenant, and thanks to that you had access to the blue flame frequencies, and your objects were able to be charged, okay? And then you had this Ankh with all this fifth dimensional power, and you were able to use your Ankh to move the energy and to perform healing. But not only that, you were able, for example, there were different priestesses that were like in this circle, and everyone was using its Ankh, and it was like groups of people together were able to move like huge stones, for example, and to build temples and to do healing and balance, like high advanced ways of healing actually. But again, the Ankh was not useful only because of its shape, it was because we had access to these fifth dimensional frequencies and to this blue flame. This is something super important to understand. So if you have an Ankh, if you have one like this, for example, I prefer gold. I have a smaller one made of gold, and this is made of crystal. So you can use your Ankh for healing, for manifestation, for moving the energy through your body in certain ways, for inner cosmos travel. Again, in the future, we are going to be able to use the Ankhs also for ascension, for directing energies in stronger ways, as it was before, like with the ancient Ankhs. This depends on the access that we have to this blue flame and also the material of the Ankh, and so I believe that we are going to have different Ankhs in the future, And then when it comes to the Giza pyramid, it is super important that the Ankh was helping for this teleportation passage, interdimensional passage, to be created. Okay, so for beings, for galactic beings, for example, from Sirius, to be able to come to the Earth, for this portal to be created. So in this video right here, you can check more about that if you're interested. Okay, and thank you so much for watching and being here today.